Okay, so let's bring in Democratic strategist Kevin Walling and Fox News contributor Marc Thiessen to talk through all of these very sticky issues. Gentlemen, good to have both of you with us.
Hey, Shannon, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Shannon.
All right, I want to bring up something that Trace referred to a little bit earlier. He talked about Paul Krugman writing at the New York Times. He said this: the closest model we have is the influenza of 1918, 1919, where it turned out that the places that were too eager to return to normal life paid the price. But one thing that we know for sure is that the United States is nowhere close to that point. So the idea that we can reopen in a matter of a few weeks is crazy, Marc, he says.
He's wrong. The reality is look, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former head of the FDA, laid out a roadmap for recovery, and he set a very clear metric, which is in states where there has been a decline in cases for 14 days, as long as they have the hospital capacity and the testing capacity to test and isolate people, you can start to open things up. And so that's going to be different in different places. It might be sooner in New York if New York is recovering, but it might be later in Michigan or other states. So this isn't something like, this is a false controversy. There are going to be places that are going to be ready to open up, and there are going to be places that are not going to be ready to open up, and we just need to follow a clear metric of when it's safe to do so. And we all want to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about Governor Whitmer, who is getting a lot of heat in Michigan. Now, she says, listen, I'm following people like Zeke Emanuel, who is an educated, respected doctor. But there are a number of people that are saying, listen, the fact that you can't travel between residences, that there are all kinds of things they think go too far. The Wall Street Journal, under the headline, "It's Still America, Coronavirus or Not," writes this: decrees like those from the Michigan governor's office and their capricious enforcement run the risk of encouraging mass civil disobedience that will undermine the point of the orders. I mean, Kevin, I got to tell you, in my neighborhood, there are some people who are not observing the padlocks on the tennis courts and the parks.
Yeah, mine too, Shannon. You know, I think Governor Whitmer is listening to her health experts when she makes this decree. You know, Michigan is seeing the third highest rate of COVID infections in this country. It's a scary, startling statistic. Nearly 2,000 Michiganders have died. Nearly 25,000 Michiganders have come down with COVID. So I think she's doing what she can do as governor to ensure that we tackle that curve, that we bring down those rates of infections. They're in population centers around that country, places around that state like Detroit, other areas, and she's got to mitigate that expansion of that disease, and that's the result that she's taking here.
Okay, and our buddy Andy McCarthy, writing over the National Review, says this: the question is one of balance. American lives are being shattered by the restrictions that have been put in place. The decision to do that was based on models. Those models have no credibility. And Marc, he talks through that article showing how the models have changed wildly and been kind of all over the place, and saying that can't be the only basis that we use for making these very restrictive decisions.
Well, the models are changing because the data is changing. I mean, one of the problems we had was that the FDA took 6 weeks. We lost 6 weeks in developing testing. So we're behind the curve on testing. And so if you don't have testing, it's hard to put data into the models. But look, we have to find a balance. You know, you don't want to shut down a business that doesn't have to be shut down unnecessarily, just in the interest of throwing everything at the problem. And just, you know, she's one of the few people who's having in Michigan having a popular uprising against her. You know, Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York, he's earned bipartisan praise for his handling of the crisis. When Bill de Blasio threatened to do what Whitmer is doing in Michigan and New York City, he shut him down and he said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to have martial law. We're going to allow some businesses to operate, and we're going to let others not. So I think you have to find a balance that protects public safety, but at the same time doesn't necessarily destroy the livelihoods of millions of Americans. We've got 17 million Americans applying for unemployment.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are staggering. The lines are amazing to see. Kevin, I see you nodding your head in agreement with at least some of what Marc's saying. Quick final word to you.
Yeah, Marc and I are in agreement. He hit the nail on the head with regards to testing. Less than 1% of Americans have been tested in this country. That was the president dropping the ball over those 6 weeks from that first case here in the United States.
Not.
We need wide-ranging testing in this country. We're not seeing that. We need White House reporters to focus on that as well and get some answers from this administration. Testing.
That was the FDA bureaucrats, Kevin, who
that worked for President Trump.
That
worked for President Trump. Marc.
Oh, come on! No, it was the CDC that had a failed test, and it was the FDA bureaucrats that did that.
We need presidential leadership over those 6 weeks, Marc.
Yeah.